Good evening, everybody, and welcome to California Free Radio. I'm Mike Nitter, accompanied by Scott Piotr. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight and start off with 60 seconds or so of silence in memory of Charlie Kirk. I would ask that all of you out there share this show if you can. As you know, today's a special anniversary, but I'm going to be quiet, and I would ask all of you bow your heads in a silent moment for a great American who lost his life yesterday. Take us in.
All right, we're going to share a short video clip that is of Charlie Kirk, and he kind of explains his spiritual life or defends his spiritual life to one of those campus debate situations, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So we'll go ahead and start it.
You a Christian? I understand.
Very, very much so.
Like, why is that exactly?
Jesus saved my life. I'm a sinner, gave my life to Christ, most important decision I ever made.
So you believe the Bible is real?
Yes, I believe the Bible is true and real.
Why is that?
Well, I can give you the technical answer. There's never been an archaeological discovery that has contradicted the truth of the Bible. And then, of course, the wisdom. There is not a truth of the Bible that if you apply to your life does not improve dramatically. And then finally, we have the most accurate and transparent, historically robust account that one can have of the most important figure ever to live in the history of the world, Jesus of Nazareth. And the resurrection is the pinpoint of my belief that Jesus did rise from the grave so that we may live.
What makes Christian mythology real?
So that's not mythology, but that is theology. If Genesis 1:1 and the resurrection is true, anything in the Bible is possible. You're looking at the greatest miracle. The greatest miracle is creation. And then the fact that Jesus rose from the dead. I say, how do you know that Jesus rose from the dead? Well, show me another historical piece of a story where so many people willingly died a brutal death for a lie. Every single person around him had everything to lose, and yet they went to the absolute death, from Paul to Peter to the half-brother of James, saying that Jesus is Lord, Jesus rose from the dead. Not to mention, if you were going to fake a story, you would not use female witnesses in the ancient world. In the scriptures, it said that the women were the first one to see Jesus Christ. If you're trying to fake a story, you would never do that.
That was so typical of a lot of his defense on campus, going against or arguing for the students in his whole career that he started from nothing, turning point. Mike, go ahead.
Everyone out there, we seem to have a little bit of an echo tonight. Apologize for that. We should get over it. I'm seeing some feedback from the audience. Start off with a little bit of a more somber show tonight for a couple reasons, which I guess you gathered. As always, I'm Mike Nitter. This is California Free Radio. It is being blasted across social media. I'm accompanied by Scott Piotr. Kurt is off tonight. It's on my feed at Netter Mike on X, Scott Piotr at TaxFighter7 on LinkedIn, blasted out to various groups under Mike Netter. All across, thank you to our sharing team, Rebuild California on Facebook, and on Outrage, which all of us certainly should be today on YouTube. I want to as always start with an opening rant. Scott, could you take that graphic down 1 second? I want people to really focus on what we have to say. Everyone out there, today is a very special day in American history, and not for a good reason. And I want you to really get your arms around what 9/11 means. For starters, for most of us out there whose fathers fought in World War II, they're not around anymore. Most of these things are history things to us. 9/11 is something that so many of us lived through, whether small kids, middle-aged people, or whatever stage of life. We actually experienced 9/11, and the entire country experienced where disagreement from the Middle East turned to extremism. And that's exactly what we experienced yesterday. Everyone out there, just because you disagree with someone, I don't care what side of the damn aisle you're on, you do not have the right to be extreme. And if you remember during 9/11, for me, one of the most upsetting things was after the event to see people and nations cheering what was happening to America. And I have flashbacks yesterday of people cheering what happened to Charlie Kirk. Look, I don't give a damn who you are, what your sexual orientation is, what your party is. You don't celebrate the demise of another human being. You do not facilitate the demise of another human being. You can disagree all you want, whether you're on the right, whether you're on the left, no matter where you are. It's when we don't pay attention to these little things in society, really bad things happen like happened yesterday. And that's exactly what happened 24 years ago today. We as a society became a little bit complacent. We became complacent that some people were coming in our country and got involved in something where they took out the World Trade Center. A plane in Pennsylvania went down. A plane hit the Pentagon. Because we as Americans weren't paying attention to the little things. And that's a lot of what really was involved in 9/11. I also would like to make the point that in 9/11, I believe it was Flight 93, Scott, where they said, let's roll, if I have the number correctly. Okay. I want you to think of something. Many people in the World Trade Center that day were doing what all of us are trying to do, what we fight for. Go to work, raise a family, have lunch. They weren't willing combatants. Charlie Kirk chose to put himself at the front of the line, but not be an active combatant. And God bless people like Charlie Kirk, the people that do the show, the people that are involved in our movement. We go forward and are combatants. We choose to do this. That doesn't mean we choose violence. The people on Flight 93 and many other people that day then made a conscious choice to get involved and prevent more people from dying. And tonight what we have starting off our show is a couple people. One was a reporter, former CBS man, on the ground in Detroit, talking from another city about what was happening that day, and someone who you may notice last name is the same, yes, they're related to me, who's a New Yorker, talking about their experience and how they volunteered to get involved afterwards. The term never forget, and I put it up in my first post this morning. Yesterday, we mourned Charlie Kirk. Today, we remember 9/11. But it's important that we don't forget, because it's when we get lackadaisical. It's when we forget the little things. To be polite at a grocery store. We start arguing with people over little things, tiny things. Just because someone's left, right, whatever, stop it. Everyone out there, You can mourn, do not maul. And those on the left, and I've seen all the stuff on my X feed today, my Facebook feed, even some on my LinkedIn feed, you're out there, it's mourn, don't maul. You want to disagree with me? Go right ahead. But most people do not choose to be combatants. Some of us choose to combat for them, and some of us choose to help clean up after the battle's taking place. Scott, could you bring on our guest tonight?
Well, I'll bring on Jeff. We lost Andrew. He'll come back, I'm sure.
Well, I guess we're going to start with Jeff. Jeff, introduce yourself to our audience a little bit. As we could tell, you have that professional look about you. Explain to our audience why you do.
Well, Scott, Mike, thank you so much for having me here on California Free Radio. I understand I'm going to be talking about 9/11. I reported on 9/11 from New York City as I was in Detroit at that time working for an NBC affiliate. And I'm happy to describe to you what I reported on, what I felt, what I saw. I was at Ground Zero. I interviewed Rudy Giuliani, then Senator Hillary Clinton. I was there for the first pitch by George W. Bush, the president of the Yankees, Yankee Stadium, following 9/11. There's just so many things that I can remember, and so many things I actually forgot because I couldn't tell you exactly how many reports I did and what every single report was. But I'm happy to talk about 9/11 on this 24th anniversary, and still very hard for me to believe that it was 24 years ago.
Jeff, let's talk about, now you were in the media at the time. I was in my corporate job. As you person in the media, how did you find out about it? I mean, did you find out about it like I did? I happened to get a phone call walking down a hallway that said, hey, did you appear at a plane at the World Trade Center? How did you find out about it? Did it come over the wire? How exactly we made it?
So I was a general assignment reporter for WDIV TV in Detroit, NBC affiliate. And
can you say that
and
fast?
as you know, it all happened just before 9 o'clock in the morning. I was in the newsroom making phone calls like I always did. I got to work a little early every day and made phone calls, shaking bushes, just to try to find exclusive story or call all of my contacts to see what story I could pitch that day. And in the background at that point in time, from what I can remember, the first plane had already hit. And in the background was the Today Show with Matt Lauer. And, there was a little bit of scuttlebutt as to what was going on, but nobody was especially concerned or anything because it was just the one plane. But I vividly remember, Scott and Mike, I'm sitting at my desk, and when that second plane hit, we all knew at that point in time that this was not a typical day, that this was terrorism. And so...
And now we have Andrew back. Hold on, I want to introduce him because he's back east. Andrew, you were in New York City. Tell us about your experience when it happened, and tell our audience who you are, besides obviously being related to me because we have the last name, which the audience will try not to hold against you.
Thank you. Yes, I'll try to redeem myself. Hi, I'm Andrew Netter. The day the planes crashed, I was uptown. I was working with the Parks Department. And there was nothing really, I was working in the parks. I was just, the plane crashed. And I remember seeing it happening on a little TV in a bodega. And we just shut everything down. And everybody, kind of went home. And, they started they started shutting down the city, first at 125th Street. And eventually they didn't want anybody going below 125th Street, which is way up there. And eventually they set the blockade all the way down to Canal Street, which was the zone at that time. But my experience in those days was how we were all waiting and anticipating the survivors, and all the hospitals were on alert, and people were everything, and the survivors never came. They never found anybody, and it was really disheartening and let go. And I remember the posters all over the place where people looking for each other, and people were lost for days, and they were in Red Cross centers, and family trying to find, as Jeff will tell you, people trying to find each other. It went on for weeks. It was really, really scary.
And I want to stop you right there for a second because I'm trying to draw metaphors to yesterday, which was a surprise to us. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because people were hoping that people were alive after seeing this, and we were all hoping yesterday Charlie Kirk can't be dead. I mean, I saw the video. I'm like, well, I'm sure he survived, and we're so optimistic when something like that happens. Go on. And so you saw this, and you saw people coming and going, and you were there more firsthand to it. Remember, back on again, this is a different kind of show, folks. We're trading experiences. For us on the West Coast, Jeff, you were in Central
No,
Time.
I was
is that
Eastern Time.
correct?
Detroit is
Or
Eastern
East
Time.
So it's fascinating to me because I was up, but kind of just moving around. It was 6 a.m. out here, right? I was in a hotel, and I'm getting a phone call. Hey, did you hear a plane hit the World Trade Center? And I'm thinking it's a biplane or something. I'm like, the guy, Don, the guy that told me. And literally, we were in a different mindset out here, not experiencing like you were almost real awake time. So Andrew,
Well, it was just everyone's, the whole world was like upset and confused. I remember my father, who might remember Arthur, was flying back to New York that day from North Carolina, and they diverted his flight, and he was doing circles. He didn't know what was going on. He was in the air. They didn't want to tell them anything. And next thing he knows, they're diverting him to Scranton, and because they were about to run out of fuel. And that was a risky move too, because there were a plane that had crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. So it was just an upheaval, and there was a real, the information was really hard to come by at the time. The media didn't know what was going on. There were jets scrambling over New York City for days, because they shut the airspace down. They shut down the mass transit.
Andrew, I want to stop you for 1 second and go to Jeff, because this is why I'm doing it this way. Because you were in New York, really not knowing what's going on. I mean, you're like me on the West Coast. Jeff, did the press, because you were a full bore on the news guy, were you getting more news at the time? Did you realize instantaneously what happened? Or, because again, we get things, now I'm kind of part of the press, I get them 10 minutes before the public these days, if I'm lucky. But how did you get the information?
So after the second plane hit, I was dispatched and assigned to go to the border. I was in Detroit, and that border's Canada. And so they immediately shut down the bridge, and there is also a tunnel. And I went to the tunnel where they backed up traffic and stopped all traffic in and out of the United States. And so that was my assignment for that day. And as part of my assignment, I was making phone calls. I was, talking to immigration. I was talking to Border Patrol there. I was talking to the Sheriff's Department. I was talking to all of my sources, anybody and everybody that I could, to get new information. And one of those would be the FBI. And from the very beginning, like from where I was, from the assignment desk, told to go to the border was really less than a mile away as the crow flies. And in that amount of time, from the station getting into a live truck and getting in place at the border to go live, the FBI had told me that this was a terror attack. And so I had known that, but I wasn't able to really report it at that point in time because it wasn't official.
So let's go back to Andrew. That's kind of my point, right? We're on the West Coast. Andrew, did you, on the ground in New York,
well, some people
Arthur,
do. I saw a plane hit the World Trade Center, and then people were watching in this bodega, and then another plane, and it was like, oh my God, it's a terrible accident. And then another plane flew into the other tower, and everybody got you can draw your own conclusions. That's one hell of a fucking coincidence. Excuse my French. So people who knew what had happened and what exactly had happened could surmise that we were under attack from somebody, but from where and who were they? And we just didn't know what was going on, who was attacking us, how was it? It was bedlam. It was really very confusing, and at that point they just started shutting down the city because they were worried about looting and and that kind of nonsense that people tend to do when they when the system is strained like that. So yeah, that's what happened. It was just total confusion, and nobody. It took days, and for people to get any idea of really what had happened. They just didn't know. It was terror. People were escaping Manhattan any way they could. They were jumping ferries. There were people, with private craft were going down to Battery Park and pulling people off the shore there and just getting them out of there. It was, there was just a mass evacuation downtown, and we waited and we tried to find our loved ones and we waited for the survivors. And unfortunately, that never really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And there were some that I had friends in New York, et cetera, were trying to get a hold of. Jeff, let's talk. I see someone saying about the Pentagon. I understand what you're saying a little bit, but how about, Andrew, in the Pentagon? Jeff, you two talk for a second. I mean, how did you find out the plane hit the Pentagon? Remember, we're on the West Coast, kind of driving around. Everybody's trying to get info on TV. Let's start with Jeff. Jeff, how did you know, or did you hear there was a plane approaching?
So I was staged up at the border there to Windsor, Canada from Detroit, and I'm in a live truck at the time, and we're dialed into the NBC broadcast. And so we were getting all that firsthand information from the network, and also getting source information from phone calls and people there at the border that were giving me information. And so I was able to ascertain that the Pentagon was hit, that Shanksville had happened, and all of this was going on. And you might remember there was some talk about the White House being a target. I remember sitting in a live truck,
Right.
And one of the DEA guys there at the border said they think there's a plane still out there that is going to hit the White House. And I just got this gut-wrenching, sick feeling to my stomach, and just like all the blood drained out of me, because already this was horrific, and already this was something I couldn't wrap my head around. And to think that whoever is doing this is now going to fly a plane into the White House or into Congress, thankfully, thank God that didn't happen. But there were a lot of things being considered as to what might happen. So,
Andrew, is that one of your dogs in the background there?
Back
That don't worry about it. That's okay. This is I appreciate you
there's
coming
no
on.
stopping them.
So I want to make sure, because this is a live feed. You're not
I
holding
think
anybody
it's
hostage.
cushion.
We are. So, Andrew, how did you? I mean, at the time you're in the center of New York, okay? How did you find out about? I mean, you've got all this going around about.
It wasn't until I was,
something.
until I got back to my home, got back to my apartment, and started to settle down with the news that night, and the next days that I learned of, the flight 93 that had crashed in Pennsylvania, and they think it was heading for the White House, and we knew we were under attack. The question, what was the target? The Pentagon. That made sense to me. That's a target. I was thinking they would try to attack the sub base in Groton, Connecticut, where the nuclear submarines are, which isn't far from there. It just the press started to put it together, and the reports from across the country started to come in that night, and things started to settle down. But that day was a long day, and just.
Yeah, and I want to I'm sorry to cut you guys off, but I'm trying to bring this in conjunction with yesterday. And Jeff, and that's why with what we do here in our podcasts, I'm laughing at the dog, the podcast, because yesterday with Charlie Kirk, I'm literally getting calls from reporters that I know. I already knew what happened. Back in 2001, there was no social media. So it wasn't like, oh, let me go to my phone, BlackBerry, I believe, that we got news on. But your role was different. I mean, it wasn't like today I could go and do an immediate podcast. So you were getting and disseminating the news much differently than we do
it was
today.
all just from my cell phone and calling people and getting information and doing, shoe leather reporting, where I was there at my assignment and getting out of the live truck and talking to people as much as I could between my, a day like that, you're doing as many hits as you possibly can. And if you get off the air, then you go and you find somebody that has some more information, and then you let them know, and then they put you back on the air because it's wall-to-wall coverage. So you are reporting on just little tiny updates that you get throughout your time there. And that's through the phone, that's through face-to-face. So no social media or anything like that. My phone was just blowing up, and I was calling people in between phone calls and talking to people face-to-face right there that were newsmakers that I could get on the record.
And that's a great point Stephanie has. We kind of forget this, and that's why I want to tie everything together. To me, it's just important because the internet. Yeah, we didn't have internet in 2001, right?
At
I'm
least
trying to
not-
remember. I had
At least not like now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We had
not like
internet.
now. I mean, if we had stuff that connected us, but my cell phone was a car phone, okay, where I had to call people, and people forget the lines were down.
Yeah, it was tough. I had one of those StarTAC. Remember, I actually still love that phone. I had one of those StarTACs, and I, back then it actually held a charge, and you change out the battery, and I think I went through 3 or 4 batteries, and yeah, it was different time, that's for sure.
Scott, jump in for a second. What was your experience that
Oh, I
day?
remember I want to say that it happened around 7:30 in the morning, our time. And so you were just getting ready to go to work or walk out the door. And all of a sudden, and we didn't have the TV on, someone called me up and said, turn on the TV. So turn on the TV and just in time to see the second airplane hit the second tower. Almost like the picture that's right behind me over here. And we were kind of just stunned, what's going on? We had to play catch up. And needless to say, I didn't get to work on time. I don't think a lot of people did.
And by the way, what's interesting too with the multitude of events going on, I want to kind of make a move over before, Andrew, it's tomorrow for you. Talk about the post-event. And I think that one of the things, maybe the good or the bad about in social media today, like I kind of opened the show with a little bit, get a lot of anger from the left, anger from the right, anger. For me, what was fascinating, I actually traveled to Hawaii on one of the first planes out a week afterwards. And I traveled a lot in those days, not unlike I do today. Let me go 1 second, gentlemen, and we'll get back to you. If you remember, and Jeff, you might because you traveled a lot in those days too, after 9/11, people were inordinately polite to each other. Oh my God, on the planes and where I was, maybe not in Detroit, I get it, it's Detroit, but roll with me here, okay? People really were they were a little bit, I was business traveling, right? And people were a little bit more like cautious or whatever. It was a different kind of mode, I think, and I'm not saying the exchange is bad than it was today. Andrew, I thought a fascinating story to me, though, was in addition to the events, which are well documented, tell us about what you did after.
Sure. I had one additional comment about that day.
I'm sorry, Andrew, we're out of time. No, I'm kidding.
Here in New York, the cell towers were down. You couldn't get it. Was a paperweight. It was useless. Everyone was trying to call everybody, and they were just forget about it. You couldn't make a cell phone call for days. Soon after that events of that day, in March, I started working for a commercial moving company who needed extra people because they were doing the cleanouts of the buildings down at the World Financial Center, not the World Trade Center, the Financial Center, the 2 smaller buildings 2 and 4, where one building is the primary occupant was Merrill Lynch, and the other one was American Express. And we went into these buildings, and there was they didn't have the air on, they didn't have the heat on because they were worried about spreading the dust that were in the vents and whatnot. But walking through these offices or walking through these cubicles, people just left. It was just so eerie. dried flowers on the desk and evaporated cups of coffee and Yankee tickets for that night of Tuesday the 11th sitting on the desk. People's shoes, their handbags, everyone's. It was just like the people disappeared, and it was just post-apocalyptic. It's
Like a Twilight Zone
creepy.
episode almost.
It was like they were abducted.
Yeah.
And you can really get in touch with the fear of people who were left without their shoes, who just ran out of there and left everything they owned, and that's heavy.
I'm going to ask Andrew, how did that make you feel? Because I've been so how. Again, you volunteered as an active person, for lack of a better term, and I want to compliment you on your guts to even do that, right? To help, quote, clean up the carnage a bit. How did that make you feel? Did it make you feel scared or weird?
Well,
how did you feel about that?
I wasn't a volunteer. Let me be clear about that. I was on a payroll. I was being paid by a movie company to do this.
No. When I say no. Let me explain something. I know you're getting paid. It was a job. But you continue to take that job by volunteer. It's like a paid soldier, dude. Okay, you could have said screw this and gone and done something else to make money. Okay, so by volunteer I mean kind of like a soldier, if you will. I'm not trying to put you equivalent with a soldier, brother. What I'm trying to tell you is you went in to do what probably a lot of people didn't.
The way we handled it, and the way we decided, we really had no guidance, but the way we decided to handle it was to go desk by desk and identify whose desk it was, and if there was any belongings that were worth anything, we would seal them in an envelope and try to, and we were going to try to get them back to their owners. Pocketbooks, telephones, big StarTACs. Lots of Blackberries, etc. But it was emotionally draining doing that. Especially.
Jeff, was it emotionally draining for you to cover this? It was your job, but I mean, how did you feel covering it? How were the people at the truck? I mean, you guys, it's one thing. You became an unwilling participant in covering a story you didn't wake up to cover.
Yeah, I was there in New York City for probably just a little over 2 weeks, reporting on everything related to the World Trade Center attacks. And quite frankly, I think that mentally I blocked a lot of it out. Like I can't remember certain things because you have to understand that I was there and I was responsible for doing live shots at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 a.m. and then again at noon. And then again at 5, 6, and then the 11 o'clock newscast. So I was expected to be on the air for every single show. And you have to understand why, because you're the only one there. And I had no problem with that. I just can't recall every single story. And I think a lot of that is because I was blocking it out. A good example is, I didn't get a hotel room for the first few days. We just basically slept on the floor of the satellite truck. And we didn't want to lose our spot. I mean, if you're a reporter, it's kind of a little inside baseball into how when you get to a scene, once you're there, and if you're in a good spot, you don't want to leave, because if you leave, you're not going to get that spot back. And especially if you're already kind of behind where the police wouldn't allow you otherwise, you stay there. And so I stayed there because we wanted to be able to have access to police. And, I was able to do scrum interviews with Rudy Giuliani and all the firefighters and police and everybody that was important to this story. And so I think after like a week, I finally got a hotel room. And I remember I hadn't showered. I hadn't really changed clothes. I took just a go bag. And I remember getting to the hotel room and taking a shower and just crying. All the dirt and everything from what I had reported on and everything where I'd been was washing off, and I just lost it. I just cried, and I did that, and that helped me. And then I went back at it the next day. So emotionally, and I really hesitate to tell you this story because obviously this was a tragedy for so many people. 3,000 lives were lost that day. But just personally to tell you, that's how I handled it. As I just, went straight ahead like a horse with blinders on, did my job. But there was a point in time where I was, I kind of broke down.
Well, and Andrew, hearing you talk too, I think that's something that really was different for me than something that I've lived through before, right? Because we were, we had gone to the office and blah, 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 and we're looking at pictures in the paper of individuals jumping out of windows that someone took. And this became not 3,000 dead like a tsunami or an earthquake in China. To your point, you were picking up, people's possessions, individuals. Like we saw Charlie Kirk and one individual yesterday. And Andrew, I'm not trying to get too personal, but you know what I mean. This very quickly, we didn't know how many people died, who was coming, who was going. What was it, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you got paid. Let's be clear. Andrew did get paid. No one owes Andrew money. To go in and do this, right? You went from this big thing to kind of this micro, was it 2 weeks, a month later? How long ago was that?
I started that job in March. So it's 5 months, 6 months.
Not that long, actually.
Yeah. And I remember it had been a really like warm, dry, it was like a non-winter. Those guys worked in that pit all winter long, and it didn't rain, it didn't snow, it didn't, it was just, I remember I can almost remember the smells. Everything is that burnt smell that was downtown.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, at that time. And, and not realizing how toxic that stuff was to people. I know of a story of a guy I knew at sanitation when I was working there. His cousin was on ladder 3 and went down with the towers, and his brother went to the pit and he was looking for his brother Danny to recover his body, and they did find Danny's body, but Tommy died of cancer 5 years later from finding his brother, for his efforts to find his brother's body. So there are a lot of stories like that, a lot of color, dark as it is, in the background of this recovery, and there's a lot of stories like that.
And I think what's interesting, and I don't mean to get too personal, gentlemen. You can refuse to answer this if you want, but look, I've been in floods, other things, acts of God, okay? And the one thing when something happens and you go to rescue, and I've done it, it's an act of God. How I feel about whoever this individual is, I cannot repeat on the air, that did this to Charlie Kirk yesterday, made me very angry, because this wasn't an act of God. We found out pretty quickly these were perpetuated by, human beings. Andrew, let's start with you. Did you feel anger or just feel resignation picking this up? Or how did you feel as a New Yorker? Most people I know were stunned, quite honestly.
I took we got so much support from all over the nation in our efforts down there at doing this recovery. There were plenty of people who are real volunteers working in those pits. People from all over firemen from all over the country working there. There was aid stations. There was soup kitchens. There was all kinds of outreach and support for New York and its recovery. And I found that very heartening and very positive. And the way New Yorkers started to treat each other was different, was very different, because we had a common cause and we had a common goal, and there was no right or left or whatever. It was, let's go get them. That's it.
And Jeff, by the way, flipping back to you, sorry guys, that's what I was referring to. I was traveling around America at the time, right? And there was this a sense of unity. I mean, maybe as the press, you didn't feel that politely, Jeff, but did you feel any change?
I did. And I got to tell you that I want to tie this into today. And where we stand now. So when I was
Yeah.
covering the terror attacks in New York City, we had the opportunity, George W. Bush, the president then, gave a national address. And we thought that at that point in time, the best place to go do that was at Times Square. They have the big screens there. They were going to put those big screens up in Times Square. And as we kind of guessed, a lot of people gathered at Times Square to hear this national address. And it was great timing for us because we went there and, you know, there was all kinds of people to interview and talk to. And that was my story. And everybody was united. Everybody felt prideful. Everybody was united against the terrorists. Everybody was united behind the president. Everybody was united behind America. And I just wonder if the same thing happened today, would we see that? And my guess would be no. And I think that is what is a big difference just 24 years ago. It didn't matter who the president was. You rallied behind that person because of this national tragedy. If we had that today, I fear that there'd be a group of Americans that wouldn't. And I don't know that we could get back to that. And God forbid we have another tragedy like that. Just to see if that would be true or not. But that's just my guess, is if something like 9/11 happened again, that I just don't think that we would come together as a country as we did 24 years ago.
Well, Scott, weigh in.
I was just saying, even
Andrew, go ahead.
Charlie Kirk having happened yesterday in this assassination, the country hasn't come together. It's deeply divided. You see people not hiding their anger and hatred towards Charlie Kirk, not disguising it at all, and maybe some veteran newscasters are better than others to hide their feelings, but it's clearly that the country is divided and only getting worse. When you would think that people would unite behind a common tragedy like this with Charlie Kirk, instead they're taking sides. So I agree with you.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because was it the MSNBC reporter, and the one that got fired, who is a beep, 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 beep. I'll do my own beeping on this one. That somebody could actually get on the air and say what this person said. And I'm going to jump in for a second because I'm struggling to believe that in 24 years, that the fabric of America has changed that much. But what I'm not struggling to believe that in 24 years, the people that think they speak for America has changed. Andrew, that may sound a little bit too esoteric, but jump in. Does New York really change that much? I mean, the fabric of everyday life, not whether or not the bars are still open. We won't go into that, Andrew, on the air till 2 a.m. But I mean, is the average person in New York changed? Are they more obnoxious than they used to be? Less? I mean, has the people changed, or just the way the city operates changed?
The people have changed. The people have changed, as illustrated by the Matthew Perry case recently. People are reluctant to help one another anymore in the street, or as just there is no good citizens. There are no good citizens. It's not rewarded anymore. Everyone minds their own business.
It was the Marine that held that attacker back and ended up killing him in the process in New York.
Right.
Game of choke. Right. He got prosecuted.
Although he did beat the case, it did take up 15 months of his life, and God knows how much it cost him to keep his freedom. Matt Perry.
Daniel Penny.
Well, the girl in North, I forgot the girl's name, and I feel bad. The girl in South Carolina that just got stabbed?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That film,
North Carolina.
And North Carolina, sorry, the other Carolina, North Carolina, no one came to help her. And the same thing in Los Angeles. And for everybody out there, you see things happen in LA, and people just go, oh, someone got stabbed or shot, and they move on. And you're like, everyone out there, the crux of our show today is not only that disagreement doesn't lead to extremism, and it's not okay to hurt another human being. But if you see another human being in trouble, help them. And Jeff, weigh in on this, somebody, before I blow a gasket, because it drives me nuts. Do you think this is because these cases get amplified and people go, oh my God, I remember the Perry case? Is that, I mean, both you guys weigh in on this, because I find this just amazing, appalling. If I see someone hurt, I go help them. I don't really worry about the.
Well, think about what happened
later,
to Mr. Penny on that subway in New York City. So that's a good example of, there's enough people out there now that have seen that. And that registers with them that if they see somebody that is in trouble or they see somebody being aggressive, that they should not intervene. Now, he didn't do anything wrong. He was exonerated, but he paid a price and he paid a toll for that. And I think there are a lot of people that just are not willing to do that. I know personally, I'm like you, Mike. If I see something, I want to intervene. But I got to tell you, I'm a family man and I have children. And if anything was to blow back and affect them, I couldn't do it. I just, now I don't get involved. And I think it's because, one, there are people that are more violent now than before. And, you know, the judicial system is one that if you did something, and there's like if you were to, I mean, if somebody was to come into your house and you were to shoot them, you're still not in the clear. You know what I'm saying? There's things that you have to think about. I think once you start thinking about it, you get to the point where it's like, it's not worth it. And a lot of people are just taking that tact. I mean, I'm probably guilty of that as well.
And that was kind of what happened in North Carolina with Ernest Zarutzka. Is, you know, everybody kind of stood back and let the bad guy walk around with his knife, and hopefully he passed by them. And by then, no one even after he left, no one really stopped to help Ariana as she's bleeding to death on the floor.
That was a little extreme, though, wasn't it? I mean, I think that if I was in that situation, I would certainly try to help the young woman. I mean, maybe keep yourself clear of the person that did this, because he's obviously very violent. But that was what was disturbing to me, is that nobody reached out to her. Nobody tried to comfort her. Nobody tried to see if she was okay. And that was the most startling thing to me. Not that this man did this, and not that people didn't get involved, but that nobody checked on her welfare once he was clear of that scene.
Yeah, who knows?
So Andrew, in the streets of New York, hold 1 second here, because Andrew, you literally, I won't tell people what your day job is, you just retired from, unless you want to. Go ahead.
Okay.
But you are out in the streets every day of New York, okay? Out in the streets every day. And you've been doing this for a very long time. Do you see a change in the way that people...
I'll tell you, I'm not ashamed to admit that I just retired. I just retired from the sanitation department in the city of New York. And I'm out there and
Oh, you should be ashamed. I just don't know if you want me to tell
if
people.
anybody is truly invisible out there, it is me. People will run me over, but I've seen all kinds of stuff, and people do not want to get involved. In my opinion, they've divided us by not enforcing the law with these radical DAs. And when they divide us, they will conquer us, because it's every man for himself, and nobody will stand up for what's right or for the weak or for the wrong. That's my observation. I'm glad to be out of there, and I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
I think that's what we're missing, is that brotherhood that we've always had felt in the past that really isn't there unless you go to church or unless you hang out with your family and your friends. You're not getting brotherhood from strangers like you used to.
Even after 9/11, there was a lot of brotherhood. It's not happening.
Yeah, and I think it's too, we're going to go back to California next week, but to your point, Andrew, which is a very good one, we have extremism. In the DA's office, we have extremism with law that makes us hesitate for a second, right? And that second for everybody out there is someone's life. And bringing it back all around before I let you two fine gentlemen go. And when I say two fine gentlemen, I'm not referring to Scott.
Thanks, Mike.
What's interesting to me, and by the way, I'm not casting aspersions doing this, but like in the Charlie Kirk situation yesterday, and I'm not saying this could have been prevented by somebody, but we a lot of times said, remember after 9/11, see something, say something, right? Okay. So there were a lot of people at the event yesterday, and there's a dude that climbed on the roof carrying a rifle, like when President Trump almost got assassinated, right? You would think someone would have, say something or something, whatever. So I guess my point is I don't want to lose that either. Okay. So Andrew, weigh in, give us your biggest takeaway from having lived through that experience. Okay. What would you say if I was to meet you on an elevator, okay, or the back of a trash truck because you're hauling me off, and you were to give me tell me in 30 seconds what your biggest takeaway is from having been in the city and helped with the cleanup of 9/11, what would it be?
The way the city came together.
What impacted you the most?
It impacted me was the way the city came together and we cleaned this mess up. We did. All our infighting and all the little things that were going on. There was a lot of unrest among individuals and groups in New York City at the time, but we all put that aside and we all went to work together, and it was very inspiring. I don't know if that would happen today. What I would take away from that experience was hope, just hope, really, hope and gratitude.
Andrew, we're going to let you go because it's late back east. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me
on.
Yeah,
God
Andrew.
bless you. Jeff, I would like you to stick around for a couple more minutes and tell us, from a press professional, and tell us again, we kind of just threw you on here to begin with. You've worked in a number of cities, and how long did you work for CBS affiliates?
Well, I started my broadcasting career, and I'm really dating myself here, in 1989. I started out in radio, did 8 years of radio, and then got into TV news, and then worked in a number of different markets, including San Antonio, Kansas City, Detroit, and Los Angeles. And so I'm very, very happy to do what I've done as a general assignment reporter and evening anchor and morning anchor along the way. And I'm a journalist through and through is how I see myself, and that's one of the things that I'm the most proud of, is just being able to navigate these different cities, getting to know the people, and reporting on those stories about them.
You're still in Detroit now, or are you?
No, I'm here in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which news are you with? NBC still?
No. I'm actually independent, if you will, and doing a lot of digital reporting. I do a lot of business news now. I also do some radio reporting, and I have reports that go out to TV stations across the country, radio stations as well, on various different topics, mostly business news right now, but general news as well. I've done a lot of business news over the years, and so that's kind of something, a little bit of a niche that I've kind of grooved out for myself. But I was a general assignment reporter for years. I was a crime beat reporter in Detroit for 7 years. That was during 9/11. So, and I followed up with all of that, by the way. Remember, we went to the War on Terror and followed through, of course, with all the investigations after 9/11. And so, yeah, that's
what's the difference in report? I don't want you as an insider, if you will, and I want to go into one of my stories in a second, because I'm some inside outside, because I know the reporters. Tell me what did you see different? I want to match observations on the way Charlie Kirk was covered yesterday compared to many other events that you covered throughout your career. Did you see any difference in the coverage, or is it simply my imagination because I'm older than Methuselah?
I did have the chance to take a look and scroll through and see how the other networks were doing. I actually reported last night for Salem News Channel, and I was on the air covering, because Charlie Kirk was a Salem News talent.
Right. Right.
And so, and Salem Radio Network talent. And so they were grieving. A lot of those folks there, of course, were mourning the loss. And so I came in and basically anchored from 6 to 10 o'clock last night here, local time, all the coverage of
870, where we were?
No, I was on the streaming channel, the
Okay.
Salem
Yeah.
News Channel. And
We got a lot
so, we did a lot of dipping into MSNBC and CNN and reporting on what Fox was reporting and stuff like that. So I will tell you that I think probably I consume news like it seems like everybody else is now. They're not doing it as broadly. I mean, I still am a news hound, and I consider all sources, and I go to all sources, but I still have higher regard for some. And so I tend to go to those more often. I felt like Fox News did a good job. I saw a little bit of CNN yesterday. Again, I didn't see everything. I'm seeing some snippets today. And, where they really get into trouble, Mike and Scott, is when they have those pundits that start giving their opinions. You saw the MSNBC guy that was fired. I saw some sound bites with Jen Psaki that, she was editorializing a little bit there. And so that's where I think, when it comes to that, that's not my bread and butter when it comes to that. I look for those reporters that are out in the field and getting the information. And so I looked at all different sources.
Where I was going. Scott, weigh in on that, because I want to weigh in on that. What I thought was missing yesterday. And again, for us old guys that have seen various assassinations and other things throughout history, Scott, what did you think was different yesterday about the coverage of Charlie Kirk? Or did you not see anything different versus other things?
That's a good question. I think that, like Jeff pointed out, that there was a lot of commentary being given on the fly rather than just the facts. Here's what's happened. Here's what we're trying to find out for you. Hey, there's a person of interest, or guy on the rooftop, whatever. Even the details of what he was talking about when they pulled the trigger. You didn't see any of that on the news. You just saw, they did their, I would say, cursory review of the facts, and then they went right into commentary.
Yeah.
Which was more divisive than anything else.
Yeah.
That is exactly where it was going. What was missing? Sorry to have to cut you off, but going back in time, and again, for me, I don't know, you had 9/11, okay? 9/11, we didn't know what caused it. We knew it was a bad thing had happened. Give me the beep, 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 expletive deleted. What's going on, because I want to know, okay? When somebody gets shot of note or something happens, I'd like to get the fact. I actually, and by the way, guys, promise not to tell anybody. I'm
Never.
a conservative, okay? I watch the conservative channels, and I watch the CNN and other ones too, but I really had nowhere to turn just to get the news. And in fact, it reminded me of even watching the National Party conventions.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do we turn on Fox and see if this is good, or do we turn on CNN and see how much they hate us? Back in the day, you would turn it on, and I'm sure they had a bent to it. But my God, it's everything is one big commentary.
It's all changed, and I'm not going to fault Fox News, because I got to tell you,
No.
I was drawn to them because I knew that they had insight that the other networks wouldn't have, the other cable outlets wouldn't have, because Charlie Kirk was on Fox a lot, and I know that Laura Ingraham, I know that a lot of those people there are friends with Charlie. So I was gravitating to Fox because I knew that they would give me information and insights into Charlie Kirk that I wouldn't get at other places. But that is that's where we are now, is, as you mentioned, Scott, it's not the reporting that used to be the nuts and bolts. And you would go out to the report in the field over and over again for that little bit of information, like I mentioned that I did on 9/11. You're just now getting scant information, and then you're just having the talking heads talk about it for hours and hours.
This is exactly who I'm faulting. You gentlemen are taking it where I want to go and where I hope to take things in the future. And before I let you go, Jeff, which will be before Friday. I want to be clear on a couple of things here that struck me as a big contrast. I often said to the New York Times reporters when I started the recall, I have since in 5 years, I've never met one of you in the field. They go, oh yeah, we don't go out much. I'm like, well, you're reporting everything secondhand.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's interesting today, and I want to give this challenge, sorry, Jeff, to old employers. There is no network news. They wonder why their ratings are dropping. They expect you to go to cable. Well, we have to put on General Hospital or Jeopardy must come on no matter what. And you're like, I used to go to the cable to get my opinions, right? And I would go to the network to see what was going on, and then go back to the cable to get my opinion.
Well, but things have changed. Do you remember CNN had the transmission line through the desert, and we watched was it Desert Shield under George H.W. Bush? I was fixated on watching CNN because Peter Arnett was there. They were in a hotel room when those bombs were dropping. I mean, that has been lost. They're not doing that. Kuwait. There you go.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, go to that too, and I'll let you go in 1 second. But I find this the most fascinating point. So I was out and about, and I'm getting. And by the way, I'll leave the reporters alone. They're calling Netter for information of what's going on in Utah. So that should tell you something. And I'm not in Utah, everybody. Because seriously. And I know them, and I go, I actually know people on the ground, blah, blah, blah. But my point is, it didn't seem like anybody had anybody locally going out and reporting. And when I got home, go back to 9/11 for everybody out there. Jeff, in 9/11, what I did, I went to find any television I could to turn on, any damn network I could turn on to find out what was going on, and the networks reported nonstop.
And you know what? When you were watching those networks, obviously there might be some reporters there that had sources that brought new information and different information. But by and large, if you were to compare all of the reporting across those networks, it was virtually the same.
Oh, I know, but at least I got pretty much the story, not the bent on whether the story was good or bad.
My point is that you wouldn't necessarily go to a network that you favored. You can go to any of them, and you would get the entire story and the complete story. Like you wouldn't care if it was ABC over NBC. You would just stand there and watch it because it was compelling story.
Right. You would just walk into the local deli or something. Here's also the other point I'm driving at here, too. I want to take back and let you go. When Donald Trump got shot, okay, would everybody agree, anybody out there, it's a big event?
International news.
Donald Trump, the former president, gets shot. Now, are you ready for this? This actually wasn't on the networks for 24/7. I got home and I'm like, they're going back to a game show? So I had to go to that. Jeff, I have some questions here. How can people find you? What's your address? Where do you live? Oh, never mind, that guy's a bad job. I mean, how can they find you on social media, or how do they follow you, or are we simply going to leave that?
Oh, no, Mike, I'm happy to share all my socials. I'm on social media for the most part with Jeff Vaughn Journalist is my handle. That's on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at Jeff Vaughn. That's JEFF, V like Victor, AUGHN. I'm very active on social media, and I welcome comments and story ideas, and I cover news every single day, mostly in the business space at this point in time. But I do cover local news here in Los Angeles and give it from my perspective.
Jeff, we really appreciate you having on. For someone of your stature to come on is very, for California Free Radio, we might be, we have a very good following. Everybody out there, there's a lot more to come as we continue to expand, because the people are taking back communication. And thanks for sharing your experience. To me, it's fascinating. Again, 24 years seems like a long time to a lot of us, But in terms of the human race or just the way we cover things, it's really
Yeah.
not. It's just amazing how we've morphed
Well,
our
Mike,
out of it. Jeff Vaughn,
I just want
go
to say
ahead.
to you, I appreciate what you do on this platform. I think what you do is filling the gap out there. I fully support citizen journalists, and I fully support people speaking their truth and and reporting on what is important to them on any platform. So I really appreciate being invited today, Mike.
Well, thank you. We are the people. And again, everyone out there, get out there and speak up. As I put it, digital activism is very important. And that's what we continue to practice here. Jeff Vaughn, you're a rock star. I know you're not really in the city behind you, but it looks very
It's LA.
interesting. So thank you.
It's
Where,
Los
what is that?
Angeles.
No, I don't, dude, I don't see any homeless or smash and grab. Not a live picture. Come on.
You got me there.
All right, Jeff,
Yeah. there
thanks
you
for
go.
joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yes, we
Scott.
really do. Your remark up there. I'm going to put Jeff out there. Follow him on X. Follow him on Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. Another one of my favorites. And remember, to replay the show on Outrage. Jeff Vaughn, thank you very much. We'll be talking to
Mike
you very
Scott,
soon.
thank you. Good
Okay?
night.
It's fascinating, isn't it, kind of, Scott, to hear the perspective when we talk about 9/11, and then we have a man yesterday who chose to speak up, not be an active combatant, lose his life simply because somebody disagreed with him. And I find a strange parallel between that. Do you think I'm off, or
You mean between 9/11 and this?
I just find it that people, what I find is that extremists, and I want to explain, there were only about 10 terrorists, maybe you could say some behind the scenes, and let's assume there was behind the scenes with Charlie Kirk, involved in 9/11. And before I even let you answer that question, let me go on a tirade here. People reporting last year, oh, look, there's only about 40 people that have escaped, that we don't know who they are. And I'm like, that Biden went through the border, that we marked as terrorists, that we got, hey guys, that's a lot of people. It only took about 10 people to do all that damage in 9/11. It only took one person to change the course of American history by assassinating Charlie Kirk. And I find those parallels, we're not paying attention to, again, we have to pay attention. That's where I find some of the same parallels.
I see Charlie Kirk. First of all, when I heard the news, I felt like many other people out there. Almost like I was gut punched. It was just so much of a shock, and it felt like a rising star had been taken from us. I was a little surprised to through all of it that he was only 31 years old. He's accomplished so much at 31. In fact, I was watching an interview between Dennis Prager and Charlie that was done in 2019. And at the time, he was only 25 years old. And he had already developed Turning Point USA to the point where it had several 100,000 members at that point. He was making, and I think it will continue in his absence, a huge difference at the campus level. And it's so much so that somebody thought they needed to take him out because of it. Here he was. He started Turning Point at age 18, and at 31, he was a father of two. I had the picture up there for a couple minutes of his wife and his two very young daughters, 1 and 3, that are now going to grow up without a dad because somebody thought. Here's something else I just have to say. Charlie Kirk, definitely from a debate standpoint and a logic standpoint, argued his side, argued it vehemently, and really embarrassed a lot of people because most people don't know how to defend their own side. Most people don't understand why they even believe in the side that they do. And Charlie he comes armed. He comes armed with logic. But he was always, you can go back and look at thousands of hours of interviews and in YouTube videos. He was polite. He never called anybody names. he might have sat there and basically run circles around them on the issue, but always respected the other side, always respected the person on the other side, always gave the other person a chance to speak. He didn't sit there and monopolize the time and talk over them. Now, he didn't let them get away with making false statements, and he never did. He never assumed that their, unless he agreed with their, I'll call it the predispositions or presuppositions of their arguments, and he would always argue on why that wasn't so. And he was just, at 31, he was a rising star. In fact, a lot of people refer to them as one of our future presidents. And now, of course, that's just been snatched from the American people. We won't know all the things that he could have done in the next 10, 20, 30 years of his life, much less if he were to contribute on that grand of a scale and become an elected official somewhere.
And I want to, like I told you before, I actually shared it on social media. For me, eerie isn't even the right word. In 2020, when people knew of Charlie Kirk, but he was kind of like an up and comer, and it may seem like, oh no, got to remember, 5 years ago he was like 25. I think he just turned 26. We did a big rally in Hemet. It was October 17th, 2020, and Orrin, my partner in the
this was during the recall.
During the recall, and right, and we were actually a pretty big name, and I'm Tim McCoy. Orrin reminded me we were in the green room. Yes, we were in the green room. There was a crowd of a couple thousand people there. This is a really big event, live, and it was broadcast, and I was in the green room with Charlie Kirk, and I came on stage with Charlie Kirk. The late Don Dix invited him. And I just remember thinking, man, well, like I told you, a tall guy, what a young guy. And he had a posse with him. And I was just, for me, I don't even know a good way to put this, but very eerie. And I want everybody to think about this out there. This Charlie Kirk, to me and to many of out there, because Charlie Kirk, we talked about this earlier, Scott, got around, okay? Meaning that he was
out there and joined your recall rally.
Right. He joined our recall rally.
He probably brought a lot of people to the event, even from local colleges or whatever.
This is a human being, not an image on the screen. And this is kind of how I started the show, that I really want people to get, okay? The people that died in 9/11. If you went over to if you looked at Netter News today, it is all stories about 9/11. Full of stories about 9/11. These are human beings, everybody. These aren't statistics. And you morons on the left, and I'm saying that because it's interesting, because the right kind of says, leave us alone. And again, look, there's bad people on the right, bad people on the left. Most people, 85%, are like, they're fine human beings. But morons on both sides. And there seem to be a lot more morons on the left than there are on the right, in my opinion. These are human beings.
It's a very low bar.
You can disagree, okay? You don't go to extremism. I don't give a rodent's posterior what it is. These aren't crimes of passion. These are planned crimes. Look, these are people with kids. You ever stop to think about that? You ever stop to think, you morons who are putting up these stupid shirts? I'm not even going to justify what I saw right before coming on tonight. Not going to do it. I'll tell you, when I went back to New York City, Scott, I wouldn't go to the World Trade Center. I want to end with this on a different note tonight, but I wouldn't go back there. I went to New York a lot, and I wouldn't go back there I went back there three different years, and I wouldn't go back to it. And I finally got convinced to go back there. And I got really mad because scammers were out there selling stuff where the money allegedly went to the fire department, and I knew it didn't. I knew they were scams. Almost got in some fist fights because, again, These events affect human beings. Scott, give me one more thing and let's roll to the end, because next week we're going to do the entire show, everybody, is going to be on California and Gavin Newsom. But go ahead, Scott, give me a roll and I'll roll it out here.
So this exhibit that I have up on the screen right now is his book. He actually, if you go online and look at Amazon now, he actually has a book that's due to come out in December. So I went out and I bought one. I'm assuming that at this point it's probably already written, except for whatever last minute edits there are. And I'm hoping that if all of us go out and buy the book, that we'll be able to encourage them to, put it out and finish it. This book here is Right Wing Revolution. I read it, actually listened to an interview between Charlie Kirk and Mark Levin about this book. And this book is a how-to on us being the right wing, let's say, the right wing revolution. It's a how-to guide on how to actually accomplish it. And that's one of the things that I think is a hallmark of Charlie Kirk, is that he saw a need in the colleges that there wasn't even his side being represented. And a lot of times he'd sit there and say, a lot of people had never even heard our side. They just call us racist or whatever and discount and don't have to listen to whatever we say. And Charlie Kirk made them listen, broke through that barrier, and he explained it. One of the things that popped out in the interview was they talked about how red states are stupid. They're timid. And he gave an example of Oklahoma's got 77 counties. Every single one of them went for Trump. And yet Oklahoma State is one of the most woke, most critical race theory and gender ideology theory college in the entire country. And when are the red states going to have the guts to do like what DeSantis is doing and kick all that crap out of their states? Do you think Governor Newsom waited 1 minute before he kicked out anything relating to conservatism anywhere in the state? Never. And that's typical for blue states. They take advantage of every single power part that they have, and red states do not. And Charlie Kirk basically shined a light of day on that stuff and basically said, we need to get in there and change that. We need to take advantage of that. And we need to fight this like a battle, like a war, like a revolution, because that is what it is. But he never took up violence. He was always, the guy was just nice. So many times I'm sitting there listening to what he put up with, and I'd be like, shut up, you moron. Listen to what I'm saying. And he didn't do that stuff. He was not.
I think what's important to note is whether it's a red state, Scott, a blue state, and you're right. States do a lot of stupid things, but I think part of the problem is sometimes we view them as states, red, blue, big blocks. I'd like to end on this if I could, my good friend. There's no such thing as a state. What? It is a group of individuals who live in that state. And remember, everybody out there, that your actions have consequences on individuals. The people who did the terrorists in the World Trade Centers, wonder if they had families. Charlie Kirk had a family. It has big consequences. For those of you out there, take a moment and breathe. Stand up for what you believe in. And any of you watching the show who think you're going to get us to stand down, wrong answer. We're not standing down. We're standing up. But understand, have the guts to sit down and discuss with us. Because I got to tell you something, Scott Piotr, and everybody out there. Sorry to break this to you. Takes a lot less guts to use a bullet than have a conversation. It really does. And I'm going to ask everyone out there to come back next week for more California Free Radio. We're going to focus back on California because that's a conversation which needs to be had. And when you go out this week, wherever you go, I want you to remember those lives lost in 9/11. And I want you to remember the life of a man that was lost yesterday. Don't stop talking to each other. Start talking to each other. And those of you out there who are too scared, who make the cool looking ugly t-shirts, go expletive deleted yourself, because you're too afraid to pick up the phone or meet somebody and have a conversation. Scott, looks like you're uploading a graphic. Stop in the name of God.
Yep.
That is a good way to end our show tonight. God bless you. Good night. California Free Radio. We'll be back next week. Tonight, I would ask you, as you lay your head down, a moment of silence, not only for Charlie Kirk, but for 9/11. Because remember, that helped us to define who we are in this generation. We lived through it. Thank you. God bless and good night. Take me out.
All right. Have a good one, you guys. And like Mike said, pray for Charlie's wife and his daughters. And this book is the one that's going to be released December 9th. I'd encourage you all to go to Amazon and buy it. Buy it so that it's a horrendous bestseller before it even comes out. And we know that his wife will benefit from that. So, as you will probably as well by